In the past, apart from disclosures at the annual budget statement and the debate and documents associated with the budget, citizens of Trinidad and Tobago were told that information on the energy sector in particular was confidential. Highly commercial details could not be revealed to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. So that we were denied information that really is essential for us to hold the government and the extractive companies to account for how they are managing our resources. The EITI mandates that annually a report is published on the monies paid by companies to the government and government's declared receipts from the respective companies. And these two sets of figures are collected, analyzed, and reconciled by an independent international auditor. So that company A might say that we paid government X millions of dollars in taxes, royalties, etc. Government, through Board of Inland Revenue, Ministry of Energy and Energy Affairs, would declare to us that they received Y dollars from company A. And this international auditor will in fact compare the figures and seek to reconcile the differences between one set of figures and the comparable other figures. And that in this annual report, he will highlight where there are discrepancies. The disclosure of information to citizens like this is a first-time recognition that the natural resources of the country belong to the people of the country. The resources do not belong to the government. They are simply custodians and holding it in trust and managing it for us. The resources do not belong to the extractive companies. They are just investors in the exploration to make a profit. The resources belong to you and me, us, the people of Trinidad and Tobago. But what is different for Tobago is that unlike Trinidad and Tobago, where we proceeded with our hydrocarbon exploitation without the checks and balances of an EITI and made mistakes along the way and lost money along the way, Tobago in fact now has a period of at least 5 years to put the systems in place, the checks and balances that would ensure that Tobago does it right. And that Tobago in fact is going to show Trinidad how it should have been done then, because we are going to be benefiting from Trinidad's experiences, and in Tobago we are not going to be reinventing the wheel. So the EITI is an exciting opportunity for Tobago to get it right. And if we didn't have the EITI, all the ills of the development on the scale that we're going to see with blocks 22 and 23 would happen anyhow, but civil society in Tobago would not have a say, as indeed civil society in Trinidad didn't have a say 20 years and 10 years ago. So it's really a wonderful opportunity for Tobago to get it right by civil society participation in the process as of right. Nobody is doing civil society in Tobago any favor. Civil society has a right to participate in the exploitation of its resources. And this is why it's so important that we should maximize the benefits for Tobago from these developments through an initiative such as the EITI.
extractive industry. They're talking about non-renewable natural resources extracted from the ground. So this initiative focuses primarily, but not necessarily exclusively, on what is called in the oil and gas industry the upstream. Okay, so the upstream deals with the actual extraction of the resource from the ground. So our principal extractive resources are those listed there: oil, natural gas, or minerals. And more so in Tobago's context, when we talk about minerals, we're talking about aggregate. In Trinidad, you have both aggregate and asphalt. Those are the extractive resources that we are talking about now. However, you will learn that the Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative is it's a framework, and it is a country-driven process. So a country can decide that it wants to cover other things that they consider extractive. And so some countries that have implemented this have gone to the situation where they are covering water as an extracted resource, forestry as an extracted resource. I think those are the two main ones, and fisheries, which may be something that Tobago, for example, may want in the future to agitate for, to add to the Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative process.
Throughout Trinidad and Tobago meet to debate the motion, transparency and accountability, managing our nation's resources. The 10th National Youth Parliamentary Debate starts now.
The Honorable Minister of Small and Micro Enterprise Development.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I always heard when growing up, empty barrels make the most noise, and I never understood what that meant until I met this opposition. Opposition does not mean you simply oppose for opposing's sake, but make meaningful points along the way, and I have yet to hear a single one. Mr. Speaker, to the topic at hand, the EITI, which will be a safety net. It is an independent, unbiased entity, which will be a safety net that will act as a checks and balances with the Board of Inland Revenue. We are not doing without the Board of Inland Revenue. Notice I use the word with, Mr. Speaker. I do not know where the opposition is getting this crazy notion as if we are doing away with the Board of Inland Revenue, and we are compromising our nativity.
My dear friend of W. O'Meara, you said, don't thirst your own, but the government themselves, they don't thirst themselves. And to my lovely member of Points of Pay, you said if the man himself doesn't understand the Board of Revenue, do you think they're going to understand the EITI? Mr. Speaker, the EITI will not be helping the improvement of our economy of Trinidad and Tobago, because when the EITI is implemented into Trinidad and Tobago, the government themselves will spend more time on the EITI and not on other institutions that they need to spend on. For example, the healthcare system. Oh God, please, no beds in the hospital. I'll go help with poor people now. Help the poor people.
How is the TTEITI relevant to you?
Well, the TTEITI is relevant to me because I know for a fact that in Trinidad and Tobago, our economy is heavily dependent on the oil and natural gas sector.
I think the TTEITI is relevant to any country that has natural resources as a major part of the economy. Trinidad and Tobago being an oil and gas country, producing country in the Caribbean, we definitely need to look at what revenues we get from them and how it goes to our government and how is it distributed.
Well, as a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago, the TTEITI is relevant to me because it will allow me to know whether I'm being properly served by our government, by our caretakers, in that we know on an annual basis a budget is read and we know there's spending that takes place on hospitals, roads, and other things.
Well, me personally, it's relevant because I have an interest in development, and for responsible development you need transparency. So that's why, for me, personally and professionally, it's relevant.
TTEITI is a tripartite process, so it involves government, industry, and civil society. And I think it's a laudable and extraordinary effort to give civil society a voice around the table where the key decisions in the extractive industries are made. So usually we have government, we have the companies, but here civil society can actually participate.
What would you like to see in the TTEITI report?
Well, understanding the report format a bit, I would hope that the first report fulfills the initial requirements to get things up and running, but later on I would like to see some exploration of different types of resource use, like environmental impacts, social impacts, that sort of thing, in subsequent reports.
Definitely, I'd like to see how much money the country has received in the past, let's say 10 years, from the oil and gas industry and the extractive industries, and how it has been used by the government, what percentage of it has been used to say into deliverables to the people of the country. So therefore we can see the direct link between these industries and the people of the country per se. We know that we have foreign companies working here, and how does these foreign companies help our local people?
The first two TTEITI reports are going to focus on the oil and gas sector. And I think it's important that we do those first because we have the most information available for those two industries. However, what I would really like to see from the TTEITI report is the mining sector, because mining, quarrying, it's something that affects all of us. You might be home today and a quarry sets up next to you tomorrow.
The report should be easily understood, not just me as a youth, but also to everybody. The common man on the street should be able to read it and get an impression of what the TTEITI report entails.
I would like to see an in-depth, precise reports in terms of the monies that are being paid to the government and how much the government actually receives. So if we have a company that says that we give the government 1 million per year, we want to see that the government could send a release that says that this company sent us 1 million per year. And how do we as a country know that 1 million is the correct, the accurate amount in terms of what the oil companies have been producing?
A bit of an overview in terms of how the current oil and natural gas sector is performing in terms of Trinidad and Tobago, a little background information. and also in terms of the commitment of these companies to sustain such a practice. I would like to see their commitment in terms of being a part of the TTI process as well.
What do you think about the current transparency and accountability of the extractive industries in Trinidad and Tobago?
For me, the oil industry has always been a black box. I mean, the only thing I ever knew about the oil industry was that you have plenty of money there. And with transparency, you never really hear figures. You just hear assumptions and speculations around. You just hear 1 year is good, next year is bad, you found a well. And you really don't know the money-wise what happens from this economy, that industry.
I think it's very vague. I think that the extractive industries in Trinidad and Tobago do not disseminate enough information about, and also the government of Trinidad and Tobago do not disseminate enough information in terms of finances and the extractive industries. And I think that is something everybody in Trinidad and Tobago should have a right to see, because at the end of the day, we live in Trinidad and Tobago, we are citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, and the natural resources is ours, they are ours. And at the end of the day, we should have that right to actually see the transactions between those companies and the government.
Well, I think in terms of that particular sector, I think there's a level of secrecy in terms of who the particular specialists, individuals or persons who deeply involved with the oil and natural gas sector are intimately involved with what's happening. And in terms of the general mass, it's really mainly concerned in terms of, okay, the money is being used for social programs and government investments. So at least we need to bridge a gap between the significance of that sector to the economy and also what is happening in terms of the financial aspect and how is that being used and managed towards the benefit of the people.
In terms of it being readable or understandable to the normal citizen, I don't think that it's really that way. And I think that one of the things that needs to be done is that it needs to be distributed in such a way that the normal man on the ground can understand and understand where their tax money is going, where their revenues are going, because these are non-renewable resources, and once it's used, it's not coming back. So it's about time we take some full measures in terms of letting our citizens really know what is the true side of this.
Well, like many other issues of transparency, I think information is out there, but most people probably don't have the capacity to understand the information even if it is available. But as a whole, I think we're not that bad in comparison to many other countries that have a strong extractive industry base. But I think a lot of work needs to be done in disseminating information, making people aware and build their capacity to understand the information that we give them.
I don't think we have a culture of transparency and accountability. In fact, the government is utilizing or extracting resources on our behalf, and they are accountable to us as to how they use the resources that they extract. So I think this initiative is a good way to get people used to the idea, because a lot of people are like, why are we doing this? Or we trust the government. It's not a matter of that. As I think a US Supreme Judge said, sunlight is the best disinfectant. So a little sunlight can't hurt. Alright? So I think that's the way I look at EITI.